My name is Sid Parker with Environmental Supply. I want to go over quantities of water to be stored. I know there's a lot of opinions and a lot of recommendations on how much water you should have for your storage. The government spec is 1 gallon per person per day for 14 days. In my opinion, that is total survival mode. You'll be happy you got it, but you're going to wish that you had more. So my own opinion is that you should have between 3 and 5 gallons of water per person. That will give you enough water to wash with, wash your face, wash your hands, clean up, wash dishes with, those sorts of things. But the other thing a lot of people don't realize is if your food storage consists of mostly freeze-dried and dehydrated foods, that is going to take a lot of water to rehydrate that food. And then once you eat it, you need to be drinking a lot of water so that it passes through your digestive system properly. A lot of people don't think of that. If you're in an emergency situation and you don't have water, do not eat your freeze-dried food or your dehydrated foods. It will cause you worse problems. If you eat that food dry and it goes in your system, what will happen is it will suck the moisture out of your system. It will rehydrate, but it will rehydrate with the moisture out of your body, and it will plug you up. Okay, let me go over one other thing. There's a scenario I want to illustrate to you that was told to me years ago that just made a lot of sense. If you had a scale, and my left hand representing the low end of the scale and my right the high end, the low end being that this would be a preparedness scale. So the left hand would be where you're totally unprepared. So if a crisis happened, whether it be natural disaster, whether it be political unrest or war or whatever, let's say you have no food storage, you have no water storage, you have no alternative power, you have no alternative shelter. I mean, you're totally unprepared, you have nothing. So that if a crisis happens, you're totally dependent on the government, you're dependent on your family, you're dependent on friends, you're just dependent on whoever you can get to help you because you have nothing. And then on the right, this would illustrate that you are so well prepared. You have your food storage, your water storage, your alternative power, your alternative shelter, cold weather gear, alternative cooking. I mean, you've thought of all things. So you're depending on nobody. I mean, if a crisis happened, life would go on like nothing ever happened. So I always tell people, where do you want to be on that scale? Do you want to be closer to the end here where you're dependent on everybody for your subsistence and your living? Or do you want to be closer to this side of the scale where you're depending on no one? And so I say choose where you want to be. As far as water storage goes, you've heard my recommendation of 3 to 5 gallons per person per day for as long as you think you'll need. Okay? I'm not saying 14 days, I'm saying as long as you feel like you need for your family. It may be 30 days, it may be 60 days, it may be 90, it may be more. You have to think and ponder and pray as far as what you think you're going to end up needing. But that is totally my opinion and my recommendation, and especially if you have freeze-dried and dehydrated foods. The government spec of the 1 gallon per person per day for 14 days is more over here towards the left side. That's total survival. I mean, you're not depending on everybody for water. You've got enough for 14 days to stay alive, but you're real close to that area. I mean, you're going to run out really fast. Okay, the 3 to 5 gallons that I've recommended is going to be getting closer to this depending on nobody part. You're just going to be living very well in a crisis. So I'm more the type of person that's going to recommend you be closer to where you're comfortable in a crisis rather than you're really scrambling and nervous and depending on everybody else for your living. So that 3 to 5 gallons I recommend is more over on this end of things. And I'm saying to you on food storage, on water storage, on shelter, on power, on everything else, you choose where you want to be on that scale. You think about that on everything. Where do you want to be? How self-sustaining do you want to be? So you've got a lot of my own opinions on this, and you'll have to judge for yourself where do you want to be. And I just say do the math. I mean, if you decide you want to go 3 gallons per person per day, again, figure out how long you want the water to last and do your multiplication. That'll tell you how many gallons of water you need. Now let's go over a little bit on water purification. A lot of people have put away pop bottles, milk bottles, things of that nature, even Clorox bottles, anything that would hold water. My recommendation on that, again, you're going to get a lot of my opinion mixed with different tests and some facts and things of that nature. If the container you're using to store water, let's say it's a pop bottle, it's had a beverage in it, you drain it out, you rinse it well, and you put water in it, it's probably going to store water quite well. But your milk bottles and if it's totally a syrup bottle and things of that nature are not built quite as well as even a 2-liter pop bottle. They may not store water quite as well. Now if you're using bottles where bleach has been in them or other chemicals have been in them, those would be great to store water for other purposes, whether it's to wash your clothes or maybe even to wash your dishes or wash your hands or things like that, but I wouldn't drink the water. Okay, they've had chemicals and things of that nature can embed in the pores of the plastic, and then when you've stored water in them and they've sat in there, those chemicals can come out in the water, okay, and that can affect you. The other thing about if you're storing water in containers that have had syrups and sugary substances, you know, whether it be fructose or things of that nature, you know, a lot of factories will order in fructose in large quantities, you know, in drums and barrels and what have you. And then they sell off the barrels and drums real cheap, and people think they've gotten a great deal, and they have. I mean, because they can store water in those. It's great. You know, we call it gray water. You can use to flush the toilet with. You can use it to wash clothes with. You can use it for different purposes, and you could even filter that water again and make it drinkable. But kind of the thing about those types of containers that held those sugary types of substances is they are kind of prone to grow bacteria in. You will need, if you do want that water for future drinking water, you're going to have to treat it with something to keep that bacteria from growing as that sugar that's been impregnated in the surface of plastic starts to come out in your water that you're wanting for drinking. Let me give you a few things that I recommend for purifying water. We really like the Ion. Ion is a great product. The theory behind the Ion is it does, as far as the health food purposes, it oxygenates your bloodstream, and that helps for fighting sickness and disease. So this is sold through health food stores. But the other nice thing, the way it works in water purification, is when you add it to a tank of water, and by the way, one bottle like this does 110 gallons, so if I was going to use that to purify my water, I'd need about 2.5 of these. But what happens is the oxygen molecule bonds with the bacteria or the virus or the parasite and kills it. And that's kind of the basic principle of the Ion. The same thing as far as the bonding process happens with this other one. This is a copper silver nitrate product. Okay, very good product. Both are a lot better for your body than Clorox and bleach and iodine and all those other things. Probably slightly a little bit more money, but I'd rather ingest these substances in the proper dilution than I would those others. And the other thing to be careful about with bleach and Clorox is if your system, you know, if you have, let's say you have stomach ulcers, those products can aggravate your stomach ulcers and maybe even your digestive system and cause internal bleeding. You have to be careful about the bleaches and the Cloroxes and those sorts of things. Iodine, if you have thyroid problems and health issues where iodine would be very bad for you, be sensitive to that and do your research on that. These here will not have those kinds of effects. And these are two products we really like. This product here will do, this little bottle will purify 330 gallons. Again, this will do 110. They can be taken on camp trips, and they could be added to water that you pick up in the streams or the trails up in the mountains, and purify your water as you're hiking on a backpack trip. I've done that personally, where we've taken this on a trip through Zions National Park, from Kolob Reservoir all the way down into the bottom, down by the Narrows, and halfway down there was a spring. And so At that point, we refilled our water bottles and the bladders in our camelbacks and so forth. We added some of this ion to everybody's water, and down the trail we went, and it purified the water. Nobody got sick. It worked extremely well. So these are just two products that we really like for purifying water, but I'm hoping the other information as far as bottles and drums that have been used for other purposes is helpful to you too. Like it says, you can have drinking water storage, and then you can also have gray water storage that you'll be happy to have to use for other things, like it says, as far as flushing toilets, as far as washing, as far as laundry, purposes like that. You're going to be glad that you have other water sources for. So I hope that's been helpful to you. Thanks.